So tired of riding the same old bike on the same old trails? Have I got an idea for you? Let's go to Mars and let's go ride a Mars bike on Mars. What the heck is that? So it's a bicycle built for Mars. It's actually not a bicycle, it's more of a quincycle. 5 main wheels, actually 1 drive wheel, 2 steering wheels, fore and aft, and then it's got lateral instability decreasers, lids, those wheels on the sides. Those are that's a very technical term. And that back wheel is actually part of the trailer. So I guess if you count them all, it's a hexicle. Is that right? There's 6 wheels and tires. So it's a bicycle specifically made for riding on Mars. Now you're going to ask yourself, well, why can't you ride a regular bicycle on Mars? Well, you could. In fact, a perfect bike for that would be my Surly Moonlander, which was kind of the inspiration for this one. You got low pressure tires, and you know, Mars is a lot of sand, got some rocks, got some pretty cool terrain, and it's got about 3/8 the gravity of Earth, so you can probably huck off some of those cliffs really well and just shred your own trail. But I decided that it would be cooler to have a bike like this, because obviously more wheels are better. If you look at all the Mars rovers, they all have a lot of wheels. And turns out I also have a predilection for wheels. I like wheels. Trains have a lot of wheels. If you see a C5 Galaxy put its landing gear down, wheels everywhere. And those wheels are really cool at decreasing friction. In this case, this spreads your footprint over a larger area, which is nice. Okay, that makes sense. So let me give you some details about the Mars bike. MARS is actually an acronym in this case that stands for Massive Articulating Roving System. A bicycle built for Mars. And actually, I made this just to practice welding. I thought, you know, I might as well make something if I'm going to weld. So I decided that let's make a bicycle. And I thought, well, let's make a fun bike. And then when I got my Moonlander, you know, I noticed on the Moonlander that it had these offset spokes in here. And that way you could put a normal size hub and put in other hubs, you know, normal sized hubs. But I thought it would be neat to use that space for a drive system, and that just lent itself to this. So you can see I've got a 10-speed cassette inside there. And let's go ahead and look at the drive system right now. You've got your chain ring, the only one I have right here. And then here's an idler, and that's actually to keep the chain tensioned. So it makes it real easy to take the chain off. So if you get a flat tire, but I've got Mr. Tuffy tire liners because I hate flats. But if you have to change the tire, it makes it easy to get the chain off. And then here you've got your power transfer unit. So that takes, you know, your torque here, delivers it inside, and that delivers it to the wheel. In fact, I've got it, you can see how, let me lift it up here, how she works right there. Kind of cool. I like that part. And actually, in my derailleur is an older Shimano XTR that a friend of mine gave me. It was on Dave's Cannondale. He had a full suspension with moto forks on it back in 1998. And so I got a little bit of carbon fiber on that thing right there, which is fun. And then you drive just that center wheel, but you steer front and aft. So when you put in, you know, you're riding right here, and you put your steering input in, and you can see the linkages going, and that helps decrease your turn radius. And actually the turn radius is about 8 feet. So it's actually a pretty big turn radius. Not quite a quarter mile, but close. Okay, now you see the 6 wheels and tires right there. 5 on the tractor, we could call that. The thing looks kind of heavy. It actually would be lighter, but I had to use just regular mild steel. It's a 0.065 wall thickness, so it's about twice as thick, and so therefore twice as heavy. as a standard bicycle. I was gonna use standard bicycle tubing, but my welding skills weren't high enough, because I had some, for my fittings here, I had to, and inside that you can't see in the in my hinge, I just wasn't good enough without turning the thin-walled stuff into vapor. And so I had to use the heavier, which actually the heavier walled, thicker walled tubing, which worked out actually, so that's okay. What's it weigh? Well, on the planet Earth, the whole system, including the trailer, and the trailer's not quite done. I haven't done my racks up, or I'm gonna put a tube on the top to carry stuff. I think that'll be fun. It weighs 77 pounds. The trailer's 7 pounds, but the good news is on Mars, we only have 3/8 the gravity, so its actual weight would be only about 29 pounds, which is kind of fun. That's lightweight. Now, Mars, we got the massive, it's big. Let's go with the A, articulating. So we've got a hinge joint in the body right here, and got an aft hinge joint here. So let me pick up the bicycle, or the quincycle, and you can see, keep walking away. And actually, I'll show you some riding videos, but it hinges right here, and so the front can actually drop and touch the drive wheel, and so can the aft. And so travel down is 18.5 inches on the suspension on this front wheel and aft wheel, and travel up is about 10 inches. So it's got a massive amount of suspension travel, and that's actually pretty fun. And the thing just caterpillars across the ground. Riding it is kind of like riding a slinky, if you can think about that. It's really flexible, and it just sticks to the ground though. And after I've been riding it a while, I get in a vehicle, and it's kind of like you got sea legs. You're expecting the vehicle to have those same moving, and obviously they don't, because it's not a M.A.R.S bike. So other statistics on this thing: length, total bike length right there is it's about 13.5 feet from the end of the trailer tire to the front wheel. If it's just, we're just talking the tractor section right here, that's 9.7 feet. And then speaking of travel, I mean, the total travel on that thing is, I got 470 millimeters up and 250 millimeters down. So 28.5 inches total travel on the suspension. So why so many wheels? I already kind of mentioned that, because I like wheels. It helps spread the load out, and obviously on Mars, it has to look cool, so you need a lot of wheels. You can see the brakes. I've got fore and aft brakes. I actually originally was going to put a brake here on the main drive wheel, but I had a clearance problem with the caliper on the left side of the drive fork over there, and it was going to be neat. You'd squeeze the rear brake and these would both work. I still want to do that, but that'll be down the road. Now, the other thing with the so many wheels, originally it was only going to be that wheel, and this wheel, and a trailer. And also I was going to make another one of these that you could connect as a human powered auxiliary power unit, a HAPU. And so I bought some components to build that, and I'm probably not going to do that. But so I had these three, and when I test rode it, turns out, and now I know, it's impossible to ride, because when you ride a bicycle, you steer into the fall. But in this case, if you start to fall and you steer into it, that wheel turns, and then you just fall right over. So without having a gyro stabilized system set up, which I considered, I had to put the lateral instability decreasers on, also known as training wheels. But the neat feature here is, this is kind of like if you think of a crankshaft inside of an engine. Your legs are the pistons, and you can see where the piston's attached, and here's the crank, and these are lined up perfectly. So when you pedal, it still tries to fall over, but you've got your lids on either side that keep you from falling over, and then so you can just go. That's kind of fun too. That added weight, and I decreased weight a little bit because I used my other brother Daryl rims, and I noticed the hubs are different. I had to use XT hubs here that are through hubs, and I used the Surly nice silvers on the front and back. The rear hub is a standard sized hub, and it's a homemade fork in the back. I should have used a Fatbike sized hub. I may convert that over, I don't know. And then steering system, let's point that out here. That's kind of fun. Aircraft stuff. So got 4130 steel tube right there for push rods. Got your fittings, and then when you put your input in, it comes to this bell crank. There's bearings inside here, and these holes were just so I could move the adjustments around before I got it figured out. And I tried every single combination, and I settled on this one, and actually it steers really well. There's some clearance issues you got to watch for, but I got all that worked out. And then let's see here, we got the drive system, we got the steering system, head tubes. You know, there's technically 3 head tubes on this bike. You've got the forward, you've got the steering head tube, then you've got your aft head tube, and I used FS8 orbits because obviously if you're going to go to Mars, you got to orbit Mars, and I thought the orbits were cool. Let's see here, parts, other parts, key components. A key component in here is the center axle. You can't see it because it's buried in there, but it's solid, and it carries the races for the hub. And then, you know, your cassette is on the hub, which is on that axle. And then it also has to have, so it has to have threading for the races, for the bearings inside the hub. And then from unicycle.com, turns out I got these bearing holders right here, and these bearings, so the axle rides on these bearings, and then it's got to be threaded for your crank, obviously left hand and right hand threads. And so that took a long time to figure out, and you see the number 7 over here, and that references several things. I had to make 7 different versions of that axle before I got it figured out, and the whole thing took me 7 times longer than I had anticipated to make. And it weighs about 70 pounds, this part, so the number 7's, and plus it's lucky that worked out. And parts wise, bearings, I haven't done a full parts count, but I have counted up how many roller bearings I have, and there are 29 roller bearings in this thing, and that counts what's in the hubs and the drive system and the bearings that are hanging out inside the bell cranks that are in there, and the headset bearings and all that. And the other parts count I did do, oh, and the bearings that are in the pedals. The parts that are in the pedals, there's 100 parts just inside the 2 pedals. And once I counted that up, I'm like, you know, I'm not going to do a full parts count. At least the frame looks relatively simple, but the dimensions fit me. They're actually the same dimensions of the Moonlander I have, the Surly Moonlander. And originally I was going to have a 3rd shock on it. This shock was going to be over here. I was going to have a shock for the rear seat, the only seat, for the seat right there, and that was going to pivot, and it was going to be another Cane Creek DB I've got right here in line, and I bought that. But if I did that, it would have made the bicycle, the Quincycle, a foot longer at least. And so I said, nah, I don't need that. I'll just get a nice cushy seat and keep the center tire aired down a little bit. And actually it rides pretty nice. It also has, besides a slinky, it's got that Cadillac badge shock feel, and it's not the shock's fault, because that works really well. Now, I know some of you are asking at home, what are these things for? Those are adjustments, so I can adjust, actually, that helps me preload the shocks, is what that's for. And then if you notice the forks, they're all 3 Surly Moonlander front forks. Those are so well made, and I thought, nah, I'd rather not have to make my own fork, so I didn't, other than what's on the trailer. And there you have it. So I say we go to Mars and we go for a really fun bike ride. See ya. There it is. I'll see you on Mars.